Welcome into the Michigan State Hockey Hub. Spartans coming off of a sweep of number 10 Ohio State. Probably the best sweep they've had in years. I can't even remember the last time that happened, but it's on to the next. We're here to preview Penn State coming up this Friday and Saturday. And I brought on somebody who I've been wanting to bring on for a while, Brian Tripp. He does the play-by-play for Penn State. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. Really looking forward to talking some college hockey.
Absolutely. And you all will notice Brian on the call immediately because he brings so much energy and enthusiasm that you normally don't see. And before we did this, I actually went on YouTube and pulled up an old clip from a Penn State Michigan State game. And it's not just a Penn State thing. Like, I think Drew DeRitter's last December made a big save, and you were acting like it was, fine, Frozen 4 save. So it's just really fun. So thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your background.
First, I appreciate the kind words and love talking college hockey. But I'd been working at Penn State for a couple of years as a broadcaster with the women's volleyball, women's basketball, and baseball teams when they went D1 for hockey. So this is my 10th year of doing Penn State hockey, all 10 years of the Big Ten. And I love doing hockey on the radio. Also work for Penn State as a feature content specialist and on-air talent. Try not to be too big of a homer on air. I love high-level hockey and great plays. So the play that you're referencing with DeRitter, I remember the save. It was a great save, and then been fortunate for the last 5 years to be a part of Westwood One's crew doing national radio for the Frozen Four with Pat Micheletti for a couple of years, and now Dave Starman and Shireen Sasky. So a lot of fun calling some great hockey games there. And hopefully one of these years, the Big Ten can break through. They've been close last year with Michigan and Minnesota representing, and then a couple of years ago with 3 teams in the Frozen Four. But looking forward to seeing the Big Ten break through because, like you, I think this is right there with the NCHC, one of the top 2 leagues in college hockey. And there are no easy weekends in the Big Ten. And what a fascinating matchup we have this weekend with Michigan State. I don't think anyone thought, even though it's still November, that they'd be in first place at any point this year. And Penn State, which has climbed all the way up to number 6 after wins against number 1 Michigan, number 1 Minnesota, and now you come back and play the first place team in the league, which should be a great matchup here.
Yeah, all but 1 Big Ten team's ranked this week, which is unheard of. I mean, it's usually all but 2, right? Wisconsin and Michigan State are typically the 2 that often get left out. But it's funny, I did not know that you did other sports. I assume that you did. Most people in your position do. But I'm on Twitter the other day. I'm scrolling through. I'm like, wait, is that Brian doing like an interview with a player? Or I don't even know where it was from or what I saw, but I recognized you. And I was like, oh, man, I guess he's doing other sports too.
Yeah, I cover all 31 teams here at Penn State, and then I'll travel. Actually, I won't do Saturday's game this week. I'll do Friday, but not Saturday. Whenever there's a conflict with football, I travel with football. And we'll do sideline reporting on radio during the game, and then pregame and postgame we'll have coverage on our social media channels. Do a live postgame show using the same program you're using right here, StreamYard, and stream it out on all our social channels for football. But then football wraps up next weekend. Michigan State is here for football, and then the bowl game. So this is my last weekend of hockey conflicts with football. So all hockey the rest of the way. I was actually really lucky last weekend that Penn State played a Thursday-Friday series as Michigan State did against Ohio State. That allowed me to go on the trip. We got back at about 3 a.m. and made for an early day and a long day with football at home the next day against Maryland in the rain. But I love calling hockey games. And
so I want to get a little nerdy right now by play-by-play. One of my buddies is a play-by-play person for a AAA baseball team. Mm-hmm. And he does Ball State football and a few other things. So I've kind of been really intrigued by learning more about it. Not that I want to do it or anything. I just think it's fascinating. Since you do all teams, he does radio. And I often say that hockey is the hardest sport to do on the radio. Do you think that's true?
I personally, I get asked this question all the time, and I think hockey on radio is challenging. So what you'll see this weekend is actually the Penn State radio broadcast synced with the Big Ten Plus broadcast. Hockey, the challenge is the speed of the game, and it takes a while to develop where you can start to anticipate plays and see the entire ice. So reps are so important. But really, if you know all the players' names and numbers and you have the experience of the speed, I think once you have a handle on the speed of the game, hockey is not the most challenging because it's constant action. And
Okay.
Really the play dictates the broadcast. I think other sports where there's more action, maybe um, away from the ball or away from the puck. And look, we know there's stuff going on away from the puck in hockey or baseball where you have time to fill and you have to really lean heavily on your prep. I think each sport has its own unique challenges, so it probably depends on the broadcaster. But for hockey, for me, it's fortunately come very naturally, and I love the speed and the pace. So to me, it is not the most challenging, but I completely understand why people would assess it as
Yeah.
such.
You gotta have, the water bottle close by because it's a lot of talking. Now he told me my buddy said that you drop a cough drop in the water. Do you do that?
No, I don't use any type of performance enhancing substances during the games.
Alright, well, let's dive into the matchup this weekend. Number 6, Penn State, 10-2. Really, really impressive start. Michigan State, 8-3-1. Also a really impressive start, number 17 in the nation. You kind of ran through Penn State's schedule already. I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Friday night they beat Michigan when they played, right? Lost on
Yeah.
Saturday, is that right?
Yeah, Friday night was the shutout over Michigan. Then they
Yeah.
came back the next night. We're down 3-0. Late third period, scored 3 goals in 3 minutes and 59
Yeah.
seconds. Tie it at 3. Had a couple of chances. Noah West actually played. Portillo didn't play for Michigan, and Noah West, their number 2 goalie, who had been at Robert Morris. I mean, he was awesome. Penn State, the way they finished the game, even without playing a full 60 minutes, could have won that game. And then Fantilli won it in overtime from Michigan.
Yeah.
So they got 2
Talented player.
they have a couple of them, I would say,
Yeah.
but it was impressive. I think that was a statement weekend. Like the question about Penn State was looking at their non-conference schedule, and look, I think to go on the road and sweep Wisconsin, even though they're down, is a really challenging thing to do. But I think that was the weekend where they started to answer some questions that maybe those outside the program had about them, and they did that with the home crowd. And then you answer more questions: can you do it on the road? And then to win the first game at Minnesota, and really if you take away the 6 penalties they had to kill, they went 5 for 6 on the kill on Friday in game 2. I thought they played a pretty good game on Friday. They just could never get to their rhythm because they were taking so many penalties and couldn't get to their game. Even strength, the opportunities were pretty much even. Even though Minnesota only got 1 power play goal, it was the momentum they generated off the power plays and Penn State having to run those same guys out there time and time again on the kill that they could never get to their offensive game. And despite some really good chances late, close was really good for Minnesota. They weren't able to come back in that one. So I think that was kind of the short summary of that series. Played really well on Thursday, but Friday, simply the penalties started to add up too much. And Liam Soulier, who I know we'll talk about, was really
Yeah.
good goal there for them.
Yeah, and we saw a similar thing with Michigan State, Penn State, where, I said going into the week, I don't care if Michigan State wins against, or excuse me, Michigan State, Ohio State. I don't care if they beat Ohio State. I just want them to show this is a competitive team within a good Big Ten team, something they really haven't done in years past. But where Michigan State took advantage was Ohio State kept getting on the PK, and that doesn't allow them to set up offense, right? They can't generate chances typically from the PK. So it sounds like a similar story. Now, as we look at Penn State, what I saw just looking through, and I've watched some games, I've caught a lot of highlights. This is why I bring you on, though, because I can't tell you that, everything about Penn State, but just from the stats, power play 11.8%, that's 50th in the country. Penalty kills 77.8%, that's 45th in the country. Just to keep in perspective, what's Michigan State at? Power play 20%, 32nd. Penalty kill 87.2%, 7th in the nation. What have you seen from the special teams from Penn State this year?
Well, I think it's actually when you look at Penn State's record and the 10-2 start, it's a little bit surprising when you see those special teams numbers that they've been able to overcome that at times. The power play is really struggling. I think they're 1 for their last 27, but they haven't been on the PK much. And the PK has gotten a lot better since the first couple of weeks of the year. They've been good in the Big Ten. I think they've only allowed 2 power play goals against in conference play. So they've been better. And Liam Soulier has been a big reason why he's been excellent in net. They also just got Chase McClain back, who's good on the penalty kill. So I don't evaluate the penalty kill number a ton there at 45th and 77.8%. The power play, they have not generated momentum on it this year. And I think a big reason why they've been successful is because they've been so darn good at 5-on-5.
Yeah.
And they're deep. They have 4 lines that can score. They've really generated some offense from the back end, too. They have a trio of freshman defensemen, Carter Shea, Jared Crespo, and Dylan Gratton that they're excited about. They move pucks extremely well. Crespo and Shade have really good shots. They also play a physical game. And then they're just a really deep, mature hockey team. So they've been able to overcome those struggles on the power play. You feel like if that can start to click even at the middle of the pack somewhere, get up to 30th nationally and get that around 15 to 18%, they'll be really well off considering what they've accomplished so far this season, and still to score at the rate they're scoring at, as you see there.
Those numbers improve even just a little bit. You're talking about a really scary team. They're 4th in the nation in goals as Penn State, 1st in shots on goals. And we knew this, right? This has been kind of the game plan, the identity, the brand of Penn State hockey has been, we're going to fire a lot of shots. Michigan State in the past, kind of more reserved, not shooting as much, dump and chase. That's changed. Michigan State, since Adam Nightingale joined the team this year, the new head coach, they've been firing shots kind of looking like Penn State at times, which is a fun brand of hockey to follow. And in this particular matchup, there are two teams that get a lot of shots on goals. Now, we'll see how that looks when they face each other. Michigan State allowed over 45 shots on goal to Wisconsin in both of their matchups against Wisconsin, their 2-game set. Little concerned with a team like Penn State going to their barn and a team with this type of offense. Is that what their game plan is? Just let's see how many shots on net we can get, and there's going to be rebounds, there's going to be deflections, there's going to be screens in front of the goal. Is that still their game plan?
I think you pretty much nailed it right there. I think the biggest change for Penn State, though, if you look at shots on goal against and goals against, they've been really, now they've gotten great goaltending, but they've really made some improvements at the other end of the ice. And that's not just their defensemen, it's their whole 200-foot game. Guy Godowski, the head coach, said to me last week, hey, we tweaked some things, and he can tell that year 2 of them tweaking things has really paid off for them. So I think there's a structure on the defensive end as well, which allows them to be more consistent. But yeah, their offensive identity hasn't changed, and they want to shoot the puck. They want to score goals. They play a fun, high-tempo game, want to get going in transition. And look, when they started their Division I program, part of this, look, Guy grew up in the 1980s in Edmonton, and he was a huge Oilers fan, and that's the way they play. So that's the way he was raised watching hockey, and he felt like that's how hockey should be played. Well, it also goes hand in hand when Penn State starts its program 11 years ago. You want to build a fan base. And this is a great spot for hockey between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, 2 of the great hockey fan bases in the National Hockey League. It's a great hockey community, but you want to play what can draw fans in, playing the style that Penn State plays and scoring goals and shooting pucks from different angles. And you don't see a ton of that in college hockey. I think it's also difficult for teams to prepare for. I know Bob Motzko said that last week with Minnesota, that it's a difficult thing for teams to prepare for Penn State. And I think they just embrace it, and the players love it. It helps bring in offensive players. It's really a fun system to play. So you nailed it. They definitely want to continue to do that, and they've done it extremely well so far this season.
4 goals per game is the average for Penn State, only 2.08 allowed, and we'll get to the goaltending in a minute. Michigan State 5-0-1 when scoring first. But here's the thing that I think we're all kind of forgetting, we being Michigan State hockey fans. The Spartans have only played 3 road games all year. And one of them was the split in Bowling Green, so it was not really like a true road test, right? And then you went on the road to Notre Dame where they stole game 2 in a shootout. Now, okay, you should know this. Do you call it a shootout victory? Do you because I know it's not really a win, right? I got some heat for calling it. I said a shootout win. In your position, do you call it a victory, a win, a tie with a caveat? Like, what do you call the shootout win?
Well, it's an interesting dynamic because a shootout is technically the game result is a tie because there's two different things you're looking at. Overall, how it affects your RPI and your pairwise, and then also how it affects the Big Ten. Because even though there is a slight deduction to your pairwise for winning 3-on-3, that is still a win in your overall record. So Penn State's one of their 2 losses is overtime. They're not 10-1-1. They're 10-2. So I call an overtime win a win, and I call a shootout win a shootout win, if that answers your question. And then I'll break down on the air. All right, we're going to 3-on-3. if a team wins, they get 2 Big
Yeah.
Ten points. And if team loses, they get 1. But still, in the national overall standings, it counts as a victory. Although there are some pairwise implications by going to the 3-on-3.
Yeah.
And then the shootout is strictly a tie for the national formula. But in the Big Ten, it's the same as winning 3-on-3 for the 2 points versus 1 point. So that's how I try to break it down, whether it's win or victory. That terminology I think is
It doesn't
interchangeable.
matter how many. It doesn't matter how many games I watch. Whenever it gets to a shootout, I'm going to have that question. What's the implications? What's the scoring? Because I feel like it is somewhat complicated, especially I know it's changed a little bit, but like when they first went to 3-on-3, it's like, oh, we're playing at North Dakota. Like the rules are different.
Yeah, I think it should be standardized across college hockey. There's such that way, but it should definitely be standardized across college hockey instead of conference by conference.
So only 3 road games for Michigan State. That, is good for them in a way because, in my opinion, bringing in a new coach, a lot of new players, freshmen in big roles, let's put them in the most comfortable environment to give them a chance to win early in the season. Like, I think that was good for them. Now it's going to get tougher, right? You're going to have road games at Miami, at Penn State, more coming up as well. So we'll see how the Spartans look once they hit the road. Okay, you look at a lot of line charts. Have you all played Minnesota or Wisconsin this year?
Yes.
Did you notice the goaltenders were listed on the left side of the line chart?
I was not at those games because of a football conflict, so I did not notice that. But
I looked at their line chart.
Everyone does theirs a little different.
I know, and it drives me crazy. I'm a big I just wanted to aesthetically look nice, and their goaltenders are on the left side. And I was talking to somebody from who covers them, Todd Molesky. I don't know.
He does a great job.
Yeah, he's awesome. He really is. And we were both like, we don't know, but it is driving me insane. So,
is this one aesthetically pleasing to you? Is it?
So that's what I was going to say. Is it aesthetically pleasing? Yes, because I like the extra skater kind of on the same line. Some of them try to fit 4 in on one line. I hate that. I'm not big on the numbers having like the ice look to them. I think that's a lot going on. But other than that, I like it. I like it overall. Coaching staff, scratches at the bottom. See, Michigan State does like the column, right, on the left side, which I like as well. But this does well for us because it fits on the screen well. So enough about the damn line charts, right? The aesthetics of the line charts. Let's get into these players. And some of these players, a lot of Michigan State fans would be familiar with. A lot of returning talent. Just pick out a few players who you think, okay, if I'm a Michigan State fan, I don't know anything about Penn State, who do I need to know about? And save the goalies because we'll go over them individually.
Yeah, so the Penn State obviously returns a lot just by looking at that line chart. They returned 93% of their scoring from last year. The biggest difference is 2 newcomers. So number 20, Tor Linden, and this is a line chart from Minnesota on Friday, where they did get Chase McLean back in the lineup. It was his first game of the year. He was injured last February against Notre Dame and was still recovering from a season-ending injury. But 20, Tor Linden transferred from RPI. He's a new name. He's a 25-year-old. He's one of the oldest players in college hockey. He's also one of the most gifted players in college hockey. Excellent center, wins a lot of faceoffs, led the ECAC, which is not a high-scoring league, in goals and points last year with, I believe it was 19 goals and 39 points. It may have been 17 goals. Irregardless, he led that league for RPI in scoring last year and put up some pretty good numbers. His line with Ryan Kerwin and Kevin Wall started extremely hot. That line has cooled off a little bit, but that line is really good. Kevin Wall, experienced, has scored a lot of big goals for Penn State. He's one of their best goal scorers. Has been on Linden's right wing, and then Ryan Kerwin, who was excellent last year as a freshman, has just a true natural bomb of a shot, has been on the left wing. So Linden's one of the new faces, and the other's Ashton Calder, 24 years old. He's at his 3rd stop, played last year at North Dakota. He's also shown a knack this year for finding the back of the net with 6 goals on the season, a couple of those empty netters, but that's just the hockey gods rewarding really good play. He's played with Connor McEachran and Connor McMenamin all year. McEachran, gritty 200-foot center, and McMenamin, both really fast players. Calder's added a little extra scoring touch to that line. He's a big body. He's 24 years old. He's got a great shot, has great instincts. McMenamin had the overtime goal at Michigan State his freshman year, where the fans told him, good job after the goal right in the front row. I'm not sure if everyone remembers that video. One of the students told him he was number one. And then the line of Lampa, Sarlo, and Paquette, those guys kind of have flown under the radar. Sarlo played some with Alex Limoges his freshman year, so that name may be familiar to some, but that's an older line. They've been Penn State's identity line this season. But as I said, McLean came back, and then typically you'll see Ben Schoen or Danny Geniev in there too. There's just a lot of depth. So there's nights where Penn State is scratching really, really good players. So just because this was the line chart on Friday at Minnesota, I don't know that will look exactly like that again this Friday. It may, but they've certainly shown that they are not afraid to put different bodies in that lineup as well. So that's the forwards that you need to know. And then defensively, the freshmen I talked about are Shade, Crespo, and Dylan Gratton. Those are the three new guys, and they can really move pucks well. Paul DeNaples, steady captain, fifth-year senior, and then Jimmy Dowd and Christian Berger. The three of them, I should lump them together. Dowd, Mack, and Berger. Dowd's always been a really good player. I think Mack and Berger have shown flashes, but this year their consistency is way up. They've just been really steady on the back end. But again, the names to watch there, I think the freshmen, Shade and Crespo in particular, have played extremely well of late, and then Dowd's flashy. He's got some offensive skills. You won't mention DeNaples and Mack a lot on the broadcast, and that can be a good thing for some defensemen, and they are truly that. They block shots, and they're just really, really steady. But it's a deep team. Like, you don't feel bad. They don't number their lines. They don't number their pairings. And some days they may list 10, 9, 23 as the top line. Some days they may have them listed as the fourth line. It really doesn't matter for this group. They're steady. The whole group is steady and consistent. I think that would be their biggest compliment so far this season.
So you helped us out with some pronunciation there, which I appreciate. However, have you looked at Michigan State's pronunciation guide yet? I'm putting you on the spot.
I have.
Do you know how to say number 18's name?
Miroslav Muka.
Okay, you got it right. So it took us a while, and it took us asking around some people to figure out, because it was conflicting reports. Even people who should know, I won't say any names, had it wrong. And I was like, I just need to know how to say this player's name. So
yeah. Well, I'm supposed to talk to Scott Moore and Woody tonight. Usually they fill me in on the good stuff. Yeah, because they do a great job for Michigan State.
Really good guys, yeah. Okay, so before we get you out of here, let's touch on the goalies. Just walk us through what they have here. It's mostly a one-man show. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Liam Soulier is the starter. Noah Grannon's a freshman who was thrust into action one game early because of a little bit of a nagging injury for Soulier, and then he came back and played another game, and I thought he played really well, and he's gotten better each day at practice, and he continues to get more consistent. You see him there. He was with the national team development program, battled some injuries. He was originally committed to Wisconsin, and Penn State's happy to have him. But he is the backup to Soulier. Soulier won the job last year at the end of the year from Oscar Audio. They had been splitting starts. And it's one of those stories where he was a sophomore and he just earned it with his excellent play. Ended up starting the final games of the regular season and then started in the Big Ten tournament. Penn State went on the road, the first road team to win a conference tournament quarterfinal series in its short history at Ohio State. He was a big reason why. And I think there was a lot of excitement about what he could do with the net truly being his coming into this year. And he's elevated his performance even more. He's a bit undersized, which I think Michigan State fans can appreciate, an undersized goalie with the history they've had there. And obviously St. Cyr is, and DeRitter was, and Lurg was one of the all-time great undersized goalies in college hockey. But Sully is really athletic. He can go post to post. He's the ultimate competitor. He's got a great mindset. Plays the puck pretty well, which I think can be overshadowed sometimes. With just the ability to help relieve the pressure on your defense. He does that extremely well. And I just really think the team is confident in front of him, and he's come up with big saves when he's needed to. I thought he was at his best last weekend against Minnesota. There were a couple plays, late second period, early third period, where Minnesota, because of the power plays, just continued to threaten. And he made big stop after big stop and made a couple on some of their best players, Hughlin, Nyes, Logan Cooley. And one of the questions, I think, for some people coming into the year, at least externally, is how good could Soulier be? And I'll tell you what, if he plays like this all year long, you talk about Penn State getting the power play going, they're really dangerous. And he's a big reason why they've been so successful to this point, and certainly deserves all the credit.
Yeah, and for the Spotify listeners out there, he's 8-2, 1.81 goals against with a save percentage of 932. So I want to ask you a prediction because I don't feel like that's appropriate for
You're
your
asking the Penn State announcer his prediction. Just
right.
clear
Well,
that
that's
up.
what I'm not doing. I'm not doing it. Now what I will do, and I'm just throwing this in at the end here. So Scott and Woody do a prediction on shot total before each game. This is the game where it's going to be potentially. Now, I think Michigan State won't get the amount of shots they typically do. I think that number is slightly inflated to begin the year. But why don't you go ahead and break out the calculator for this one, probably? But a combined shot total. We'll just say Friday night for the Friday night game between the two teams.
I would say 82 is my prediction.
82.
Yeah, let's go 160 total in the series. 82 is probably a pretty safe bet. That's probably where they'd set the over/under
Yeah.
on predictions for this. But I'm really interested. I know we talked a lot about Penn State. I'm really fascinated to see the style of play that you talked about with Adam Nightingale and Michigan State. Some of the pieces that they have back, have they taken the steps? But then what the transfers, I think it's 6 transfers, and the freshmen, what they have injected offensively, is it sustainable? How good is this group truly? I'm fascinated by their start. I think wins against Bowling Green and UMass Lowell are great. I think a win at Notre Dame or the tie at Notre Dame is really good. I'm really intrigued to see. I feel like this is two teams that maybe came in externally, at least, with lower expectations. Curious to see how these two teams stack up based on just seeing the number 1 teams in Minnesota and Michigan last 2 weekends. Really interested to see what steps Michigan State has made because they've been terrific. Their power play's been hot. Their kill's been good. They have all the makings of a really good team right now. And I'm interested to see how it carries over because I think Ohio State with Dobesh, that's a veteran. That's a hard team to play. And to sweep them is really, really impressive. So they have a lot of momentum. No doubt about that.
Speaking of the freshman, I wanted to read this tweet off from friend of the show, Ryan Radosevich. Daniel Russell, who is a freshman from Michigan State, has 15 points through the first 12 games. The last freshman at Michigan State to do that was Mitchell Lewandowski, a really good player for the Spartans. I'm sure everyone's familiar with. So
I think he finally graduated, right?
He did finally. It's 13 years. I bet you every year you broke out that roster and said, Lewandowski, this guy must be 1,000 years old.
Well,
I felt the same.
St. Cyr played here with Notre Dame in 18-19. He came into a game. So Cale Morris was the starter, obviously had a tremendous career. It was St. Cyr's second year. It was a 9-1 Penn State win over Notre Dame. And St. Cyr had to come in after Morris allowed 5. So he's played here before, also played here in the COVID year when he was at Notre Dame. He's another one of those guys. It's like, man,
that COVID year is really
2017, 2018, that would mean, which is a long time.
These guys have a 401k by now, I always thought that with I don't know how familiar you are with Michigan State basketball, but Tum Nairn, he felt like he was at Michigan State for a decade. Like it was unbelievable. Just each year he'd happen to be right there, first tip off, there's Tum. So but yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting weekend. I think Michigan State improved. And what I always said was coming into this year 1, just improved on the edges. Make the third line a little bit better. See some progress. I did not expect the start that they have right now. I don't know if it will continue or not, but what I keep saying is Spartan fans, you don't have to sit here and say it won't continue or it will. You don't have to do that. You're not getting paid to do that. Enjoy it while it lasts. Who knows how long it will, but just understand that they're in the right direction, which is good to see, right? We all want the teams in the Big Ten to be doing well and headed in the right direction so that we get competitive hockey each weekend. But Brian, thank you so much for your insight and your knowledge. Really looking forward to you calling the game Friday night. Do you know who will be calling it Saturday?
Yeah, so on Friday night, it will be myself with Chris Funky, a former Penn State goalie here, also an undersized goalie. So, I'm going to ask him about that. And Eric Olson. And then Eric is typically our analyst on the broadcast. He'll do play-by-play on Saturday, and he does a great job. He's filled in all year when I miss, and he'll be with Chris again on Saturday. So, if we're a little bit of homers, it is the Penn State radio broadcast synced to Big Ten Plus, but we truly do have an appreciation for the game.
Yeah.
So we'll try to give you a fair and balanced call, but it will be slanted. It will be slanted towards Penn State.
That's fine. That's fine. The first time I remember ever hearing you do a call, I remember thinking, "Holy crap. Oh, wait up. This has to be radio too." Because you were like, the way you were describing it, I was like, "There's no way a TV. Oh, it's got to be a radio overlay." So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
you
no,
know, and the Big Ten Plus, it's such a luxury because I'll go back and watch Michigan State,
yeah.
Ohio State, or other games you get home on a Saturday if we're not playing, and just being able to watch so many other games. Big Ten Plus, it is great
And
to be
it's
able to
really
watch
been
all these
cool.
games.
And you'll know this more than I would. It feels like there's been a lot more Thursday, Fridays scheduled and already happening this year. I
Well,
know Michigan State did that some because of the football, like homecoming, and trying to
Mhm.
avoid certain football games on Saturdays. I enjoy it because Saturday night I can turn on Penn State versus Minnesota or whatever it is, and catch other games.
Yeah, there's multiple reasons for it. You said the biggest one, and that's football. And you go into these college towns and state college and hotel availability. And on a
Mhm.
football game day here, there are no other events that you can, especially with parking. Penn State makes money for hockey. That's a whole long story about revenue for the games.
Yeah.
But football is a big reason. And I think you've seen it with television. Big Ten Network trying to get some exclusive Thursday night television games. That has impacted it. There are a lot of traditionalists who say college hockey needs to be played at 7 o'clock on Friday and 7 o'clock on Saturday. Most of those people are in Ann Arbor, Madison, and Minneapolis. I think, whatever can grow the game and the exposure of the game is good. There is something about a Friday and a Saturday night. But the best thing too, like if it's not a TV window and it's on Big Ten Plus, you have a little more flexibility. Like we got back, granted, it was on Bally Sports North Plus
Yeah,
second
sure.
channel, but we got back at 3 o'clock in the morning last Friday. What's stopping schools more on Saturdays, but like the game this Saturday's at 7:30 because Penn State football is playing at 3:30. So you're
3:30.
trying to make sure fans that want to watch the game have that opportunity, then they can come to the hockey game. But when hockey is the only thing on the calendar, and if it's not televised, there's no reason for the games to be the team sitting in a hotel all day. 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock even. I'm all a proponent for breaking the norms and
Yes.
moving those start times up a little bit when it's not televised. But television and football are the two that have driven the changes in days and times of these games.
As someone who has to explain to my wife each weekend why we need to stay in Friday, Saturday night from 7 until 10, I'm all for the Thursday games. Give me 1 p.m. starts. I don't care. I'm all for changing the schedule around. So, but hey, I think that's going to wrap it up this week. Thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it. Looking forward to your call on Friday, and best of luck the rest of the way as well.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for having me.
Yep.